Nearly 30 years ago, the body of a young girl was found days after she disappeared. It had been determined that she was raped and beaten. And as West News' Anika Hope reports, the suspected killer has finally been identified, but they won't be brought to justice.
Most of us can't think of anything bad happening to us as long as we stay close to our home. But on November 9th, 1983, 11-year-old Lora Ann Huizar was found sexually assaulted and strangled to death after disappearing just a few feet away from her home in Fort Pierce, St. Lucie County, Florida. What malicious monster did Lora run into? Did she know her assailant, or was it a stranger? Welcome back to Mysterious Hook. Today, we are looking at a decades-old cold case finally solved in 2022. If you like our content but still haven't subscribed to our channel, please hit the subscribe button and press the notification bell below. Let's dive into the mystery without any further ado. With its pristine beaches, diverse waterways, and sundry heritage sites, St. Lucie's is a postcard for how blissful Florida can be. Consisting of 688 square miles, St. Lucie County was home to beautiful communities where you could raise your family without a worry in the world. Yet, these opinions would be changed after a horrible crime occurred in this very place. Lora Ann Huizar was born on May 10, 1972, to her father, Jose Luis Navarro Huizar, and mother, Judy Marie Huizar. Other than Lora, the couple had 4 more children. Jose worked in the United States Armed Forces, while Judy took care of their family. Lora was growing up in a nice home in St. Lucie County, Florida. Lora was described as a feisty and outspoken girl by those who knew her. In 1983, at 11, the bright and beautiful Lora was in 6th grade at Chester A. Moore Elementary School when everything changed. On Sunday, November 6, 1983, around 1:30 p.m., Lora was seen for the last time near Midway Road and Okeechobee Road in Fort Pierce, St. Lucie County, Florida. The night before, she had been sleeping over at a friend's house and was on her way home with a pile of clothes in her hands. She was within sight of her family's driveway when she was last spotted. Without anyone knowing how, the little girl vanished into thin air. Worry set in for Lora's family when she did not return home that afternoon as planned. Her parents called the friend Lora had been with, but they were informed that Lora had left hours ago. Panic-stricken, they quickly searched the area, but couldn't find her. They then went to the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office to report her missing. Sadly, at the time, authorities did not take reports of missing adolescents seriously until they had been missing for a longer period. In their words, adolescents who did not return home on time were often playing with their friends and had simply lost track of time. This miserable strategy from law enforcement obviously forced Lora's parents to helplessly wait for their daughter to show up at home, which she never did. A bolo sheet, however, was put out for Lora after the family insisted that she would never go anywhere on her own. Unfortunately, authorities never implemented a large-scale search in the initial phase of the investigation. Soon, a piece of information regarding Lora came to the light. A deputy from the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office, James Howard Harrison, came forward saying that he saw the girl walking near a gas station close to her home. He had been on patrol in the same area on the day Lora went missing. That was the last time anyone saw Lora alive ever again. On November 9th, 1983, 3 days after Lora went missing, her family received the news they feared the most. Her 90-pound lifeless body had been found in a drainage ditch of what was then called the Don Citrus Grove near Midway Road and Shin Road, approximately 600 yards from the intersection where she was last seen walking. Her body was taken to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy. According to the report, she had been murdered on the same day she went missing. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death in a disgusting act of sheer brutality. Lora's family was devastated at her demise, and they were upset at the half-hearted efforts of the local authorities. They could not wrap their heads around the fact that the police had never even bothered to start a large-scale search for Lora. At the same time, their small neighborhood was shocked at this brutal crime. But it was too late for any explanation, and people wanted nothing more than to find the murderer who chose this little girl as their prey. However, sadly for them, decades would pass before the mystery could be unraveled. There were not many clues to follow. A brief investigation ensued, and detectives did a couple of interviews but could not gather any evidence to lead to a conviction or even apprehension. Soon, the case went cold and remained so for 4 decades. Years later, in 2020, the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office established a dedicated cold case squad, and Lora Ann's cold case was selected for the team to reinvestigate along with a few other cases. Detective Paul Taylor was in charge of the investigation. Although Taylor had no personal relation to the deceased girl, he took a special interest in this case. In a press conference, he later shared that he somehow did relate to the little girl's story after losing his only son to suicide. He even saw his son and Lora in a dream, which he considered an indication to keep digging through the mystery. Keeping a picture of Lora on his office desk, he promised himself to never give up on this little girl. As a part of the investigation, Taylor traced his way back in time, speaking to the witnesses as well as the original investigators. His investigation led him to one of their own, who had never been on their radar, but was a part of the original investigation. The suspect was none other than the former St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office Deputy, James Howard Harrison. Yes, you heard it right. He was the last person to see Lora alive. As he dug deeper into the evidence, Detective Taylor discovered many holes in the original investigation. Not only had Harrison last seen Lora, but he was also the one who reported the discovery of Lora's body. However, he was not the one who discovered it. 2 men were working at Citrus Grove when they noticed a lifeless body of a little girl and reported it to the patrol officer in the area, Harrison. After Taylor talked to one of them, the man described the incident as deeply traumatizing. However, he could still remember the crime scene in great detail. Taylor was shocked to learn that his description did not match what was in the case file. The man further told him that Harrison asked them to immediately leave after they reported the discovery to him. This seemed strange, but what had been stranger was that no one else wanted to talk to them further after that. Taylor was the first detective who talked to him after Harrison. Harrison spent 20 minutes with Lora's corpse before the other officers joined him. For the first time, there seemed to be a suspect in the murder of Lora Ann Huizar, and it was someone they could have never predicted. As the connection was made, Detective Taylor began to put the pieces of the puzzle together. The question had always bothered him as to why Harrison did not give the girl a lift. In any normal situation, even back then, a law enforcement officer who saw a little girl carrying a bundle of clothes would have assumed she was a runaway and would have stopped to at least talk to her or would have driven her home. Detective Taylor and his team theorized that Harrison moved the girl's body into the drainage ditch where she was found to get rid of potential evidence before the backup arrived. It was time for authorities to look at Deputy Harrison more closely for the first time. Supposedly, he had complaints brought forward from within the sheriff's office as co-workers felt he had been inappropriate with young women while conducting his duties as a deputy. Aside from his job in law enforcement, he also worked as a preacher in the region. Even in that job, he couldn't keep his dignity intact. Several accusations had come forward that Harrison had molested young girls at his job at Bethel Baptist Church in the city of Fort Pierce. Detective Taylor uncovered proof of Harrison tampering with evidence, moving things at the crime scene, and hindering the investigation. Despite this checkered past, he was never charged. He was just kicked out of the church, and he himself resigned from the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office in 1984, just 5 months after Lora's homicide. As nobody kept any tabs on him, and he was never formally charged, he just picked up his family and left, like nothing had ever happened. Over the years, he moved around a lot and worked with 10 different law enforcement agencies in his entire career. Every time he started over, he took advantage of his position and maintained access to the potential victims. Sheriff Ken J. Mascara, who used to work with Harrison, said that he voiced concerns about Harrison's inappropriate interactions with young people. These complaints did not go anywhere at the time he made them, around 1979 or 1980. With all this new information, Detective Taylor went forward to gather more conclusive evidence. In 2021, analysts at a private DNA lab were able to recover the DNA from the sexual assault of the victim, which suggested that the suspect was male. But it was degraded too much by the time they were able to compare the DNA samples. Due to the extreme degradation, forensic analysts could not get a 100% match. Although no conclusive DNA evidence could be found, detectives decided that there was enough probable cause and circumstantial evidence to consider Harrison responsible for Lora's murder. We have established probable cause to determine that Harrison abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered the juvenile victim, said Chief Deputy Brian Hester in a press conference in February of 2022. Unfortunately, Harrison would once again elude justice by dying from cancer in 2008. The Huizar family was in disbelief at how the layers of this cold case had unfolded. It naturally was like a disbelief, a dream, Lora's older brother, Joe Huizar, stated. After all this time, you're telling me you're able to tell us who murdered our little sister? Sadly, Lora's parents would never see this day. Her mother passed away in 2007, and her father soon followed in 2009. Regardless of the outcome, Lora's remaining family was grateful to Detective Taylor for cracking this case, especially since nobody expected it. Several police departments around the state are now checking their own cold cases because they believe there were other victims. Ironically, where one police officer put all his efforts into helping people, the other abused his power to commit the crime. But at least in the end, the truth won. Do you think Harrison should have been stopped long ago? Or would he have tricked the law anyway? Let us know what your opinions are on this tragic case. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.